Hello and good day. US President Donald Trump halted Project Freedom, which had been launched to evacuate ships stranded in Persian Gulf within just 48 hours, although the blockade of Iranian ports will continue. At the start of this military-style operation disguised as a project, the US President, as usual, made grand claims. More than 100 aircraft took to the skies, dozens of US Navy boats remained active in the Arabian Sea and Gulf of Oman, but the outcome was the same as that of Donald Trump's previous big claims. That is, suddenly, through a social media post, he announced the suspension of the project. The reason given for halting it was the same one he has cited repeatedly before, that at the request of Pakistan and other countries, he is temporarily pausing the plan and nothing will happen until negotiations reach a conclusion. The reality is that despite all efforts, the US President failed to bring even a single country on board to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Among the 87 countries whose ships and people are currently stranded in the Persian Gulf, only South Korea expressed willingness to reconsider reopening this route. Apart from that, no other country even signaled support for the United States. However, in this futile exercise, the United Arab Emirates unnecessarily had to endure Iranian missile and drone attacks. Since February 28, 2026, Donald Trump has continually issued statements on his social media platform consisting of claims, threats, and declarations of victory. On March 6, he said, Iran must surrender unconditionally. On March 9, he said the war had been completed and the Strait of Hormuz had already been opened. On March 15, he sought help from NATO and China to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. On March 21, he told Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz and accept US conditions. He then gave a deadline until April 8. On April 7, he said Iranian civilization would be wiped out that very night. Then, he told the Iranian people to take over their own country. On the night between April 7 and 8, he declared a ceasefire at Pakistan's request and issued a new deadline. When negotiations failed on April 12, he said he no longer cared about talks and ordered war preparations. After that, he again spoke of negotiations, but Iran refused. Despite that, he himself extended the ceasefire. On May 1, he said the war with Iran had ended. On May 4, he suddenly launched Project Freedom, and on May 6, he announced its suspension. If we compare Donald Trump's statements since the war began on February 28 with those issued by Iran, a distinct steadiness and strategic clarity is visible in the Iranian side. Initially, Iran took Trump's statements somewhat seriously, but within a few days, it stopped even responding to these contradictory statements. Occasionally, an Iranian official mocks one of his statements with a sharp remark, and that's all. Instead of focusing on statements, Iran concentrated on actions. Since the war that began on February 28, it targeted every ally of the United States and by taking control of the Strait of Hormuz, effectively held the economies of all countries in the Persian Gulf hostage. The United States tried every possible approach but failed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It then attempted to do so again through Project Freedom, which was left incomplete. The United States and Israel, when imposing war on Iran, had assumed that this country would be an easy target and that its oil, like Venezuela's, would come under American control. They believed that, as in Iraq, a puppet government would be established that would continue to follow US instructions. Contrary to their expectations, Iran proved to be an iron nut that even a powerful country like the United States could not break. Its formidable war machine could neither intimidate Iran nor force it to accept its terms through fear of destruction. From February 28 until now, every time a ceasefire was announced or extended, not once was it at Iran's request. Each time, the US President announced it in the name of Pakistan. Through this behavior, Iran has sent a message to the world that no matter how powerful the United States may be, it is not enough to bend Iran. The announcement to halt Project Freedom was also made by Trump himself, which once again shows that he withdraws his own threats. This indicates that the temperament of the supreme commander of the world's most powerful military is so unstable that he issues a threat one moment and retracts it shortly afterward. For him, decisions of war and peace in the world seem less like matters of principle and more like a child's game. Due to his extreme self-obsession bordering on disease, even in the US Congress, questions have been raised to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth regarding the mental health of his boss, the US President. American voters may or may not be satisfied with such answers, but outside the United States, doubts about his mental stability are steadily increasing. Particularly in West Asia and South Asia, the common person does not hold a favorable view of Donald Trump's level of judgment. Iran has not only exposed the illusion of American power, but has also brought Trump's mental condition before the world. The agreement that Donald Trump hopes for from Iran, for which he has halted Project Freedom, is almost the same as the 14-point formula that Iran had sent to Washington via Islamabad a few days earlier, and Trump rejected it. According to details that have emerged through American media, the most important points of this new agreement is that Iran would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and the United States would end the blockade. After that, discussions on other matters would take place within 30 days, including the issue of nuclear energy. Regarding nuclear issue, it is already clear that any agreement would resemble the one reached in 2015, which Trump himself unilaterally withdrew from 3 years later. That agreement was set to expire in 2031. Iran's effort is to complete the remaining duration of that agreement, while Donald Trump wants to extend its time frame so that he can politically present himself as victorious. At present, discussions in Washington revolve around extending it to 12 to 15 years. This means that Iran has also achieved success on the diplomatic front by compelling the US president to accept the very agreement he himself had torn apart. US President Donald Trump now appears like a child holding colorful balloons that are bursting one by one in the heat of the weather, leaving him with nothing but tears. Not only has he damaged his own politics, but by starting the Iran war, he has weakened America's position in the world to such an extent that it may never be able to regain its lost status. Iran has exhausted the United States to such a degree that for many decades to come, it may neither have the courage to engage in another war nor involve itself in the affair of other countries. In 1823, the then US President James Monroe outlined the principles of American foreign policy, which came to be known as the Monroe Doctrine. According to this doctrine, US policy was based on 4 fundamental points. First, no European country would establish new colonies in the Americas. Second, if any country attempted to do so, the United States would consider it a threat to its own security. Third, the United States would not interfere in Europe's internal affairs. And fourth, the United States would not challenge existing European colonies in the Americas. Under this doctrine, the US justified its first intervention beyond its borders, and from here began the rise of American dominance in the world. After the Iran war, it now appears that the sphere of American influence may once again shrink back to the American continent. Trump has already distanced Europe to such an extent that the question of US intervention there hardly arises anymore. In Asia, Iran has drowned American leadership in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, only the American continent remains where the US president's words might still carry weight. Beyond that, perhaps no country will take the United States seriously anymore. This is Iran's victory. Thank you.